afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in this beautiful planet of ours. This is Marc, Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, here for another morning edition of Metaphysical Mocha Mondays. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the inspirational show for the week ahead, where we talk about what's going on in the world. So happy Indigenous People Day to you. Happy Thanksgiving to my Canadian colleagues up. I see that somebody said happy Thanksgiving up in Canada because they celebrated Thanksgiving this weekend. So, and hopefully you survived that full moon. How was that full moon, that hunter's moon for you guys? It came up here in Seattle, really beautiful, orange, really bright, and it's really a good time to release. When the moon is full and at its brightest, it's a great time to really release anything that doesn't help you or assist you in your journey. So good morning to all of you. If you're just joining, thank you so much for tuning in. I try to be here every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is Metaphysical Mocha Mondays, and then at 8:30 we will actually switch over into the Healing Cafe, and that's where I'll actually have a conversation directly with you, and actually spiritual chats, philosophy, inspirational speaking, mediumship, psychic, cards, tarot. I use the Oracle decks. I have 8 different decks with me this morning. So I'll be doing that right at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you want to get notifications for every time that I'm live with my shows, either Metaphysical Mocha Mondays or my radio show every Wisdom Wednesday through Om Times Radio called Inspired Living Radio, just go to marclainhart.com. You can do an internet search on the Intuitive Prospector. You can find me with a few directories: Best American Psychics, Best Psychic Directory, Ariel Spiritual Community, and of course FamousPsychicMediums.com. So those are the 4 places that I am professionally, and if you want to work with me and do a little spiritual prospecting for your own spiritual transformation, healing, and spiritual gold, then I invite you to do that. So make sure to subscribe or share to this page. Please share out if you guys don't mind. I'm kind of limited. I have a few people that help me and some top fans that jump in and help me out. But please share out to a couple group pages where people might need to hear today's message, because we're going to be talking about, it's kind of funny how I started. It all begins with and ends with, and hopefully you're tuning in today to get to that gold nugget of what I'm going to talk about, because it really stemmed from an article that I read last night. And then this morning, during meditations, I get a lot of Rumi quotes that I work with, and a lot of guidance from my intuition and just being in silence. And it was talking about follow the God spark of your heart, that calling that you may have, your mantra that you may use every day, which I think is very important to have a mantra, to say positive affirmations and have your thoughts become your words, but do it with positivity. So for some of you may be really going through a challenging time right now with the full moon, that extra energy, so that things may feel a little bit more intense. I know the moon was going into Aries, so that can be a little bit of that stubborn change. Change is the only thing consistent in life, and so you may be dealing with some stuff in your life. So this morning, hopefully I can guide you to kind of think outside the box, or inspire you to really think about your journey ahead, because there's a lot going on in the world, a lot going on around the planet, from politics to media to religion to people just, very divided. That's not what this show, that's not what this platform is about. This is actually bringing people together with different perspectives, to be respectful of all, to be kind, caring, and compassionate, and to lift up people. A rising tide lifts up all boats, and that's what this platform is for. So I saw a couple angry faces come flying in, so it must be because it's Monday. But what better way to start off the show than with a nice cup of coffee? So I've got my man mug this morning. Every man has to have a man mug, right? And like I said, I'm getting pretty good with my lattes here. So welcome. So let's talk about, it all begins with and ends with, and this stemmed from an article that I was reading, and then Rumi quote came into my mind. But before we do that, let's take a second to move into the magic of the moment. Let, just for the next half hour, just let the thoughts of your day just kind of slip away. Let your thoughts of your past, put those to rest, because again, your memory creates a past that's not real, and your imagination creates a future that's not yet set in stone or guaranteed. So take a deep breath with me. And let's move into the magic of the moment. Put a nice big smile on your face. Even if you're struggling, guys, even if you're going through a lot of the reason I do this work, the reason I'm here doing the show, is because I've struggled tremendously in my own journey, my own spiritual path. I've lost a lot of people, tragedies and traumas, my own near-death experience. So I can empathize, I can relate to where you're at on your struggle, where you're at on your journey, because I've done about everything in my 47 years around the planet, and just about seen everything there is in life, So it's important to move into the magic of the moment, and it's important to have a little cup of coffee while you do that, right? And what I was going to talk about today is it all begins with and ends with your breath. So think about when you first came into the planet. There's this white light at the end of the tunnel. You pop out, and then you're slapped on the butt, or you're shaken vigorously to stimulate breath. So really the first thing that you do when you come to this planet, when you incarnate into physical form, is you take a breath. So along our journey between that date of when you were born and that date of when you transferred back into the spirit world on your gravestone, that little dash in between is representation of your life, right? This little dash. And a lot of us forget to breathe. And so this morning, myself included, so this morning, when I'm either doing a reading or people ask, if I'm doing some mentoring or coaching, I always say it always starts with the breath. The breath is the fuel that fills up the spiritual gas tank. It's the prana, it's the life energy. It's the first thing you did when you came here. Some of you needed maybe a little bit more vigorous shaking to get that stimulation to breathe, because you've been breathing liquid for 9 months, if you think about it. And I've always thought about this in my own journey with my own near-death experience, and being a medium and working with the unseen world, and a lot of the work I do metaphysically, is I always wonder what it's going to be like when we take our last breath. And so today's message all begins with and ends with your breath, because you're going to take your last breath at some point along your journey. So the only thing that that we're guaranteed in life is death and taxes. And I always like to say, whether I'm doing a private event or a public event, that we're really just walking each other home at the end of the day. We all have different journeys and perspectives and religions and beliefs and families and careers and all that, but we all are walking down the same path. That corridor is the same regardless. And I've always wondered about when we take that last breath in life, like we went from breathing liquid for 9 months to coming into the physical world to take that breath in and live here for however many years. Some live to be on this planet for, I've seen, some people live as small as 17 years. I've seen people live up to 100 years. So there's this whole time of how long we're here on the planet. But I've always imagined what it would be like when we take our last breath and then we go through this white, light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe it's just us popping out again, reincarnation, I don't know. But what happens, when we move to that next energetic stage of consciousness? Because I personally don't believe, some of you watching today may be agnostic, wanting proof of God or proof of life after death. Some of you may be atheist with no belief at all, which is fine, because it's your own journey. Spirituality is about your own journey, really. And for me, I know just with the amount of readings I've done, the papers I've written, the interviews I've done, the testing that's been done on me, I know that there is something after when we die, after death communication. Some call it heaven, some call it utopia, some call it, depending on where your philosophy and your belief system is, where you're at in the world. It really is dependent on your belief system of what you believe is going to happen after you die. But I've always wondered what it's going to be like when we move to that next stage, kind of like water moves from liquid to steam to ice back to liquid. So there's these 3 forms. And we were breathing liquid at one point. Then we came in, we took our first breath here on Earth, and now we've been breathing. Some of us forget to breathe, so you may want to just take a nice deep breath in. And what happens when we take that last breath on Earth and we move into that etheric world, that spiritual world, that unseen world? Are we going to have a different form of breath? Are we going to have a different way of being? Are we going to just be energy? Are we going to be... It's just something, metaphysically that I always, we talk about it in my group. I've got an online spiritual development group. Some are watching today, so good morning to you guys. And if you ever want to visit the tribe and see if you vibe with your tribe and see what we do from a spiritual standpoint, spiritual development group, send me a private message or make a comment here, and we'll send you a visitor's pass to see if you vibe with your tribe. That's every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, so 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time through Zoom platform. So it's a video-based system, and I've been doing it for 4 years now. So great group of people all across the United States and Canada, and we philosophize on these things. We practice not just mediumship, but psychic sciences, metaphysics, spirituality, concepts of how spirituality interacts with our own journey and our own life. So just take a second, just to remember back as far as you can, the first time you had memory and when you actually recall breathing. Now, none of us have, and I don't think anybody here has a recall of when they were first born. They say that the memory starts recording memory around the age of 3, 4 is your earliest child. I think I can go back to about 5, when I was 5 or maybe 4.5. So I was born in 72, and I remember a lot of it. You can't see behind me, but I've got Star Wars posters, but I remember a lot of Star Wars toys when I was little, which would be 1977, which would put me at the age of 5. But it's been interesting because they're looking at the brain from a scientific standpoint. That's what we do in my group as well. And being a spiritualist is we look at the science and spirituality shaking hands, which you don't find a lot with religion. Religion wants their own doctrine and dogmas. But that's what I love about the Spiritual National Union of England is they're very focused in on scientific evidence as well as far as what happens to the brain, what the brain does during meditations, what it does during prayer, what it does during mediumship. And they're looking at some of the studies of that the memories, if you think about how many memories you have, how many thoughts you have in a day, 50 to 60,000 thoughts in a day, can you really store it all right here between the temples, this supercomputer? I kind of equate it to looking at like computers today, or even when we first started. I remember having Windows 98, and the storage of capacity was very small compared to what it is today. So they've been looking to see if we actually store a lot of our memory in our left temporal, which is this area over here. I learned a lot about the brain when my brother, before he passed from his brain cancer, he had 2 brain surgeries. He did brain mapping, and it's just fascinating how the brain works. And they were actually looking at memory may not actually be stored in the brain, that we may actually upload and download or recall cognitively when we need to recall something, and we pull it down. And we kind of use that same technology, that same concept with today's technology, where we upload to the cloud, we pull down to the cloud. So metaphysically, it's always been very interesting to me about how we work energetically. But I'm going to take this one step deeper in the fact that this morning I was going to talk about that it all begins with and ends with your breath and the physical journey, because I teach that we're physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual here having a human experience. But I also just did some research. If you go to my page, the Intuitive Prospector, if you're here, I posted an article talking about how I belong to a magazine called ScienceAlert.com, and scientists just captured the flash of light that sparks when sperm meets an egg and when conception actually takes place. So really, if we go to a deeper level, metaphysically, energetically, life begins with a flash of sparks of these atoms that actually, when the egg or when the sperm enters the egg, and conception is formatted within at the cellular level. It's quite fascinating. So if you want to read that article, it's on my page, the Intuitive Prospector. It's I get science alerts all the time because I've always been talking about in a universal year, and that's what this year is, 2019, which is in numerology the year of the 3. It's all about big changes, big discoveries. We've taken a picture of our first black hole. Some of you may be caught up in the political democracy stuff that's going on, and the left and the right, and the chaos of all that. That's universal, because I find that when there's a lot of chaos, or there's antagonists, or there's catalysts, it's usually because it's bringing about a greater evolution, a greater change for everybody. I'm always an optimist. I always look at the bright side of I always think that the coffee cup is half full. And as a numerologist, I said that this year was going to be a very chaotic, wondrous year of great discoveries. And this is right in line with that discovery of actually capturing for the first time. Now, they had done the study with mice when they had actually taken the sperm and the egg from a mouse, and they were actually captured on camera back in, I think, 2014. But they just recently, in April of 2016, they actually captured when these billions of zinc atoms connect with the sperm and the egg, there's a flash of light. And so technically, if we go deeper with this conversation today, we all start with energy. And Rumi was big about energy, about following when spirit is calling to you, that energy that's in your heart, that energy that lives right here in your heart. That's important, because even Nikola Tesla talked about, if you want to unlock the doors to the universe, you don't think in terms of speech, you don't think in terms of mathematics, you don't think in terms of English or books, you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So even at the core level, at the atom level, when all of these atoms are flying together to create life, these zinc atoms, it creates an actual spark of energy. And it's that flash of light they're very interested in. I find it very interesting. And so really, it all begins with energy, and it all begins with and ends with your breath while you're here. So just some food for thought this morning, something to think about. To be able to capture, two eggs, when an egg and a sperm coming together and seeing that flash of light. It's very much when I started my spiritual path and my questioning, because I always say life is short, question everything. As a firefighter EMT, I knew a lot about emergency medicine when it came to the heart, about the body. I got my graduate degree in sports medicine and human performance. So I have a good basic understanding of how the body works. But the one thing we've never been able to answer is, where does that energy come from? The energy that makes your heart go. So your heart's beating this whole time. You haven't really thought about it until I just brought it into your reality. But when you take a breath in, you're filling up the gas tank, right? Just like your car. You're making your heart go, but where's that spark? Just like the spark plugs, we put the spark plugs in our engines, right? We change them out and make sure that the spark is going to give that spark the ability to turn the engine over. The spark plug that's in your heart is very similar, but who or what or where does that spark originate from? Some watching, your first thought may be, well, it's God. Yeah, but what is God? We have these conversations. The Bible teaches us, this is one of many great books, the Egyptian book, the Hindu Book of the Dead, the Bible written, the Hindu Book of the Dead was written 1,000 years before the Bible. So the Quran, the different texts of historical references are fantastic, and they go deep, and they have a lot of knowledge and education and wisdom. But we always want to put God to be a man, or we want God to be sitting in a big gold throne, like the spirit world would really care about a gold throne, or have a long beard. I don't know that we understand what God is consciously, so we have to put a label on it to try to bring reason and logic and understanding to what God is. But I've always looked at it now, I was raised Catholic, I don't follow that religion, and I have nothing bad against any religion. I don't speak bad about any religion, it's just a different perception on the round table of life. But I find that it's based on energy, metaphysically, and that we return to source. Just like all the water from the mountains, whether it's ice or snow or water, hits the rivers, and all rivers return to the ocean. That's kind of how I equate our return to consciousness, that energy, if you will. Now, for some of you, you might be thinking, well, I wanted to sit on a cloud and play a harp when I go to heaven and have many mansions in heaven like the Bible talks about. I'm not saying that's not the case, because I don't know, but I can tell you from the brief encounter I had with my own near-death experience, the peace and love that I felt was unbelievable. So that tells me, and I feel, that there is more to this than meets the eye. It's kind of like, maybe, think about The Matrix. Have you ever seen the movie The Matrix? It's like, when we die, do we just unplug? And that's some would argue that this is the dream, and when we go to sleep, that is the reality. So many studies done on sleep, when we're sleeping and not doing anything, how the brain functions and how the brain fires. The pineal gland, which is tied to the third eye, which is right here, that's what they talk about, the awakening. And when you start to awaken, it's not always an easy process, because you're more sensitive to things going on. The full moon, for example, what you were feeling, from an empathetic standpoint out in society, people that are maybe have a disease and dying, the homeless, the pollution of our planet. You feel all of this. And again, I think it's just energy and it's consciousness. And again, think about your breaths. How many breaths do you take on your journey here? And it all begins and ends with energy and breath. So just take another nice deep breath with me. It's something so easy too. If you have a lot of anxiety, or if you have a lot of stress, or you have a lot of worry, it's a great technique to work with breath, to quiet the mind, to relax the mind, because the mind does make things more seriously than it needs to be. Myself included, I have had to be disciplined of my mind and be mindfulness many, many times, one day at a time, and be focused on the magic in the moment versus the future and the past, and even things I'm going through right now with my career and things that I'm thinking about doing in 2020. So I just wanted to share that with you this morning, thinking about in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. That's where you really start to move deeper into your spiritual path. If you're on a spiritual path, you may not. You may have not had that shaking that has caused the awakening. Not everybody has. Everybody's on a different timeline. But if you find yourself in that journey and you have questions, reach out to me at marclainhart.com. I do a lot of mentoring. I do a lot of transformational work. I do work with grief, in grieving process, also as a medium, connecting to those that are no longer here. And I did want to let you know that there is my next event coming up is going to be here in Seattle. It's going to be November 17th. We try to do this once a month. It's called Sundays with Spirit. I'll put the link in the page here for you guys. Let's see, where am I at here? There we go. If you want to participate, it's an in-person event, but I may be doing more online as well to reach more people. So I'm focusing on that in 2020. So I just put the link for Sundays with Spirit. And also, if you find yourself wanting to come to Seattle in 2020, I've got some great teachers coming from England. One's a current tutor at the Arthur Findlay College. One is a former tutor from 30 years, did work of 30 years, and he'll be coming. So Penny Hayward will be coming in February, leap year weekend. So if you want to take a leap of faith and you want to master your mediumship a little bit more, I've gone ahead and put that link in the comments section as well to Eventbrite tickets. It's going to be a 4-day workshop with Penny as a lead and myself working. We're going to be at Tower Memorial Spiritual Church here in Seattle, which is one of the oldest spiritual churches in the Pacific Northwest. Seattle, Washington's turn of the century, 1927, I believe. And then we'll also be doing a DEM that weekend, that Saturday night, to see how you connect with the world of spirit and bring through information and memories and love and evidence of a world that does continue on after death. So I've gone ahead and put those links in if you want to check those out. We're calling Saturday night To Where You Are. Where we want to travel to where you are. And then the 4-day workshop, which has an early bird special until January 1st. So you want to take advantage of that early bird special because then the prices go up. And then in 2020, Paul Jacobs from very famous international medium. I've seen him work. I've mentored with him. He is amazing. He'll be here September 2020 here in Seattle. And then there's another event coming up. So just go to marklainhart.com to get all that information. You get the ticket prices, the workshops coming up, the workshops I'm teaching here in the local area and online. And let's get into your numerology and your crystal for the week. But just again, remember, it all begins with and ends with breath. And the very start of it, from the time of conception, starts with energy. So just remember, you're an energy, spiritual being first, here having a human experience, learning lessons, learning life. Life for me is learn it from experience. You're here to walk the path, learn the path. Is everything easy? No, but you're empathizing, you're learning, you're growing, you're evolving, and you're transforming. So the card for this week is the surrender card, energy-wise. The number is 91, so 9 means completion. We just had a full moon, Hunter's Moon, which was orange. I pulled this card at random. The 9 for numerology means completion and end, and the 1 means beginning, start. So this is a great time to start with something new and end something that's no longer serving your higher path. Something that doesn't help you in your journey. Could be a relationship, could be a career. I'm even speaking from my own personal experience right now. But this is a good time after the full moon. We've got the 2 days before and the 2 days after full moon, a lot of energy. Great time to move into setting your intentions and allowing that energy to follow that intention and manifest what you want. So with that, but you have to surrender first. The ego is not always going to let you surrender, so you have to have a sense of surrender and to listen to that calling within your heart. Listen to that quiet voice in your ear. The crystal for this week is actually what I'm wearing, which is cornelian. And it's funny because I always say when I think of cornelian, I actually think of Carillion, which is a Star Wars reference to where Han Solo was. So sorry, geeking out. But the Carillion is really good for grounding and anchoring and brings you into the present reality of your life. But it's also a very stabilizing stone. It's this orange stone that I have here that I'm wearing right now. This is from Italy, actually. Cornelian and black smoky quartz is what I'm wearing this morning during my meditations. But it's really good for motivation. It's really good for stabilizing with a high energy base. So if you're feeling down, start with your breath, get a stone, get outside into nature. This is why I have the backdrop. Nature is all reminders of how we can raise our energy up, because when we raise our energy up, it does change our mindset, and once we change our mindset, it changes our words, it changes our action, and it changes our behavior. So with that, the cornelian is also the ability to cleanse other stones. You can actually use this as a cleansing stone if you like. To use the cornelian. It's actually found all over the world. It's a pretty common stone. Comes in red, orange, pink, or brown. So that's your prospecting stone for this week. And then your totem animal spirit for this week, what I remind people is to pay attention to nature, the unseen world that interacts with us on a daily basis. And for some of you, you're not going to like this totem animal spirit, but it's the rattlesnake. So it's anything to do with the snakes. If you see a snake, whether it's in your reality, in real life, hopefully not, or you see it, on a hike. I see snakes all the time, or you see it on TV or in a magazine. But it's talking to pay attention to any signs or what we call omens that may be warning you to stay clear, or especially anything that you hear. That's also gossip. Getting away from any kind of gossip, getting caught up, because misery loves company, guys, and it's not going to serve your higher path if you're getting caught up in gossiping about others. I see it a lot here in the work that I do. It's not something I choose to be a part of. I call it spiritual snobbery, but I do see a lot of it, and I don't get caught up in that because it doesn't serve anybody, it doesn't help anybody, but it's also part of human nature and what we do. But if you see the snake also for your health, because I always remind people that your health is your greatest wealth while you're here. We think it's based on a house or a car, what clothes you wear, but really without your health, none of that matters. So I always remind people that your greatest wealth is your health. And this is a good time, if you see the rattlesnake or the snake, is to do a cleanse, do a detoxification of the food you're eating. Good breath exercise, good water, good sleep. For 3 to 7 days is a good practice to get into, to release toxins from your body. Even this last couple months, I've had to really, my adrenals were shot, so I'm taking supplements. I have to take testosterone shots now just to keep my energy up, and because my system has changed with the work I've done over the years. So, but that's part of the path, and it's awareness to be able to change and be able to do something every day that makes you feel better. And you can do that through detoxification, more of a plant-based diet, good rest, good hydration, and of course, importantly, what I'm talking today, it all starts with and ends with your breath. So, also record your dreams. This is a good time when you have a full moon cycle like what we've had. This is a great time to record your dreams. Pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to the signs, the symbols, the synergy, the synchronistic events that I always am teaching on. And if you guys want to get spiritual daily tips, I'm now through Alexa or the Echo Pod. Just ask to open up Positive Living. You can also ask who I am to get my information and have a text sent right to your phone now, so it's kind of cool. You get daily tips. There's about, I think about 20 of them now that you can get through Alexa. So again, it's been my pleasure to work with you this morning, to inspire you, to guide you, to help you in some way if I could. Tracy goes, do I have to give up coffee to do this cleanse? No, you don't, Tracy. Coffee, just think about what you put in your coffee, right? So coffee is a big, big thing for me as well. Probably the most addicted thing that humans are probably addicted to is coffee, but you could take a 3-day cleanse and get off the caffeine high if that worked for you. But good morning to all of you. I will pay attention to your comments when I come back for the Healing Cafe, which is going to follow here in about 30 seconds. So stay on the page, stick around. I'll be back for the Healing Cafe, where it's spiritual chats, direct reading, conversations. You can ask me a question. I do try to get to everybody, so if you could limit your questions. If you ask a question and I miss it, somebody usually helps me out to address it or put bump so I know that the question's been asked. And if it's something to do with mediumship or I'm making a connection with somebody, I'll ask that you come on video or you actually call into my business line so we can hear, so I can hear your voice. I need your voice and your energy to make the reunion of life from death successful. So I need yeses, nos, I'm not sure. That's completely fine. But go ahead and share out to the page when we get ready for the Healing Cafe. There might be somebody that needs somebody to connect with. I don't know what I'm going to do until I actually get into the Healing Cafe, and it's literally like a spiritual box of chocolates. I don't know what I'm going to get until I start. So it's been a pleasure hanging out with you this morning. Again, it all begins with and ends with your breath. So think about your journey until our next soul adventure together. Be kind, be caring, be compassionate. And I'll see you next Monday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Metaphysical Mocha Mondays, followed here by the Healing Cafe, which is coming up next. So make sure to also get on my YouTube channel and make sure to like or subscribe to the Intuitive Prospector page so you can get notifications. I can tell you next week I won't be in studio. I will actually be in Disney World, so I'm going to actually try to come live from Disney World. So I'm going to go back and visit my man-child, my child within, and spend a week in Disney World. But until our next soul adventure together, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live, and I'll see you guys next Monday. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Namaste.